What is the title? Deceptions of freedom. Deception of freedom. Why is freedom deceptive? Who wants to tell me? I'll give you, let you guys do the hand up instead of me. Who wants to tell me why is freedom deceptive? Go ahead.
Some people have different, it depends on who you talk to. Some people might look at a certain thing and say, okay, this is what they define as freedom, and other people might look at it and say that it's the opposite. It's not freedom. So somebody might deceive you by saying that you are free by doing X, Y, Z, where it's not so.
Okay. Another perspective? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I think sometimes when, like, in the Western societies, when you think of freedom, it's like the freedom to do anything, and that doing anything is okay, but also the freedom of choice of not doing something, like following the Sharia, like not drinking or not smoking, that's also a freedom of choice. But sometimes we're always told that we're free to do anything.
Well, to be honest, basically, if you really believe in freedom, even basically with the constrained freedom with the limitation of the other people's freedoms, like they say, let's just take that as a concept, right? So freedom is basically doing what you want as long as you don't trespass other people's freedoms. How's that? So when you basically say, no, I don't want to be free, I want to follow the Sharia, that's not really freedom. See what I'm saying? That's really, yeah, you're making one free choice, which is basically being a servant for Allah. You're making one free choice to bound yourself with the Sharia. So after that free choice of yours, you become bounded. You're not free anymore. Sorry, go ahead.
The freedom of one person is limited by the freedom of some other person, or the society itself. So in a sense, you're never free. That's a deception. The whole idea of freedom is wrong.
Okay. I don't agree with that actually. This is maybe the usual Islamic rhetoric, that you're not really free. I mean, you actually are free in certain things, really, to be honest, right? And those who basically promote freedom, they don't promote absolute freedom. We need to be careful, brothers and sisters, especially those in universities and colleges, not to look like intellectual, right? Or look like straw-manning an argument. What is straw-manning an argument? Who can tell us straw-manning an argument? Anybody? Go ahead.
You argue is a different point, not the point that you're from.
Yeah, not necessarily totally different, but basically you restructure the argument of the opponent in a way that creates weakness in the argument, and then you destroy it, and then that's basically silly. See what I'm saying? So even though the point that the brother brought was correct, like the other ones, to be honest, this is not how we want to debate this concept of liberalism. Just as didn't speak it. Are they free? Maybe they're not free. Yes, our sisters in handbags are not free, maybe. That's what I'm speaking. And a challenge that view. Who's going to give us a little bit of a perspective here? Who's going to put their hand up? Come on. Anybody?
What's the question, Sheikh?
What's the question? The question is basically explain the deception of freedom. What does that mean? So I'll start with the sister. If you want, go ahead, tell me. Go ahead.
So freedom, we're free to choose Islam and choose to follow, to believe in God, and then when we believe in God, we kind of have compassion and want to follow all of His commands and stay away from His sins. But we also, so we have the freedom to either choose to listen and follow those commands and stay away from the sins.
Now we're discussing basically your right to follow Islam. We're speaking about the deception of freedom itself. Right? And Islamic society doesn't want us to basically freely choose Islam even though they're claiming freedom. Correct. But this is part of the inconsistencies of liberalism. That's part of the contradiction or really the misapplication because of the bias and racism and discrimination. Right? So, and then to be honest, basically, partly they're also right because liberalism is based upon aqidah. Let me talk about the aqidah of liberalism in a bit if you can want to speak. Who was that? Go ahead, tell me.
Just
say that I think that this sentiment of freedom is just so that people think being free means doing whatever you want and following your desires. So people think freedom means just do what you want, and that's what freedom is. I feel like that's the conception of it. That's not really what freedom is. It's doing, like, basically being restricted goes against the definition of freedom, even though that doesn't fully go against that.
I would disagree with you, actually. Like the other person who said the same argument. We have to basically right now debate let's not straw man anything right now. People actually are free. Right now, basically, people are free to have any sexual relationship they want. Can they do that? Yes. As long as there's consent from all the parties. It might not be a party of two. So, is there freedom? Yes, there is certain freedoms that are protected. At least on the theoretical side of the story, it's there. And it is freedom. But that's not enough. We have to debunk the essence of the concept. If we're going to basically debunk something. But look, your report is correct. Everybody's points are correct. And this is the usual rhetoric. Today, I want to basically flip it upside down. I want to target the real argument. And that's why basically it's going to be, inshallah, hopefully we're going to have to be a very useful session for everybody. There was another sister that was her hand, but tell me, who was that? Come on. Was it you, sister? I saw two hands basically. Here, inshallah. Anybody else wants to tell us basically the session of freedom? Anybody? Fine. When we speak with it, go ahead, bro. Sorry.
Yes, since you're asking me about deception, well, it kind of implies that being free will make you the most happy, will give you the best life. I'm assuming that's a deception.
Stand up. What's your name?
Hassan.
Hassan?
Yeah.
Now listen. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. The deception of freedom is not basically actually you not being free, even though that's a good argument. Look, we've made this argument in the last 10, 15, 20 years. That you're really not free, you're basically slave to your desire, and all that kind of stuff. There's always laws that restrict you, so it's not really freedom. All these things, even though they're all right. So you're right, and you're right. There's 5 people who spoke. It's not the essence of the argument. We want to debunk the essence of liberalism, where there's actual liberties that are safeguarded in this Western society. And how do we debunk it? We debunk it because they're saying we need to be free for a reason. And they're saying basically we must be free so we can be happy. We must be free so we can attain our fullest potential. We want to be free because this is what creates the innovation and creativity in the human mind. And even though some of what they say is actually true, for example, being a free thinker leads to creativity. I'm a big person on creativity and design thinking as an engineer myself. So, there's certain, it's not basically, there's nothing that's fully false, really. Most false ideas have lots of correct pieces, and then basically few wrong pieces. So what is the argument? The deception is about would you really be happy when you're free? That's the argument. That's the essential argument that you want to debunk. Fine. Now let's basically understand. Freedom means non-bound. Freedom means a choice or a personal choice is not bound by anything. See what I'm saying? So the opposite of freedom is being bound by something. So let me ask you a question. Let's say a person is free, and let's take different contexts of life. Let's take different contexts. I'm going to start with one, which is the simplest, and maybe I've used it before, maybe yesterday, I forgot. Eating what you want. You're free to eat what you want. No bounds. No bounds. You don't want anybody to bound you. You don't want science to bound you. You don't want the doctors to bound you. It's up to you if you want to follow science. See what I'm saying? If you do that, and if you're not bound by medicine and science and the doctor, the expert advice of the doctor, would that free eating lead to happiness or to pain? Because what's the opposite of happiness? Pain. Either pain and suffering, or pleasure and happiness. I call it P and P, pain and pleasure. Right? Happiness and and suffering. So, which one does it lead to? Definitely, everybody will understand that if you don't balance your eating habits, not by anything random, and not by your choice if you were not an expert, by the expert's opinion of a doctor on the human behavior of eating. If you don't balance your own choices within the domain of life of eating by the expert advice of doctors within the domain of eating, you will basically suffer lots of diseases. Okay, especially in this day and age where basically since everybody's free in a different domain of life, which is the economic one, to produce whatever they want to produce, since we're living in a free society and choices are really from A to Z. And society allows poisonous food stuff to actually be sold in the market, different processed foods, different, corn syrup and different sugars and super high carbs and lots of omega-6s in the plant-based oils and lots of preservatives and subhanAllah antibiotics injected into animals and genetically modified things that might not be tested enough and pesticides and I think it too. Why? Because we're free. So if you eat as you wish without balance, if you're not balancing yourself by the expert's advice, you're going to basically have lots of pain and suffering. Usually, the reason basically you're making a wrong choice is because there is some pleasure and happiness at the initial part of the decision. This is what we call instantaneous gratification. And really, this is the battle of the human being, to be honest. The dependent pleasure basically is a system of the brain, is the limbic system. I'm pointing at my neck, really somewhere here in the middle. And the other basically part of the brain that does the analysis to choose what's correct, supposed to be the best job of that, called the prefrontal cortex. Life is a big tug of war between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. So the minute you say, no, I want to be free, don't touch me, that's fine. But what's going to happen is you're going to have lots of happiness at the beginning. You're going to be eating all the sweets you want, all the cakes you want, all the ice cream you want, all the McDonald's that you want, all the fast food you want, all the fried food and the processed food that you want, and then unfortunately basically 10 years after, maybe probably around maybe 15 years, maybe 20 years after, you will end up with a 50 years bill of pain. It's a 50 years bill of pain. So let's put that aside. It might be an exception, okay, maybe eating is the only exception for freedom. Let's be free everywhere else, but maybe this one is an exception. Fine. Let's go to another domain. Maybe I should make you can choose. What do you want to choose? Choose a domain of life. Let's choose everything. What's the next domain of life? Give me something else.
What to pursue as a career?
Careers, working basically. The choice of actually working in the industry. Especially for women, because women in the West. See, the Muslim women over here are very free people. They're super free people. They were freed 1400 years ago when Islam came down, right? But the Western woman here in the United States of America gained the title of being a person within the Constitution, the law, the American law, in 1975. Here's the thing was 1920s, but whatever, it's not definitely last century. So they just came into, they became a person, and they had the right to vote, and they had the right to own businesses, and just recently. They came out of trauma. You need to understand, the Western civilization came out of trauma of over 1,000 years. For men, maybe 1,000 years, 1,200 years, maybe 1,400 years, dark ages plus a few hundred years of getting emancipation from the church and the tyrannical kingdom of Europe. But unfortunately, the women were left behind for another 500 years of oppression. Which is why there is a feminist movement. The reason there is a feminist movement, there's a good reason why there's a feminist movement. There's a movement against the injustice against women. Is it the right solution to this? We can have another session, a couple of sessions, we have to discuss the different story. So let's say basically basically a husband and wife want to create a union. Yeah? They want to come together, live together, maybe through marriage, through non-marriage, whatever. Two people want to live together. You know, I don't even broaden it, but I could broaden it. But let's just keep it down man and woman for now. And the woman says, look, I'm free to make a decision about my career as I wish. And the man comes back and says the same thing, like, yeah, same thing. I have basically the right to choose my career as I wish, because I'm free too. What happens in this relationship? What happens in this relationship is that both basically pursue their careers, probably will become successful. Let's assume the best. Yeah? And you know, what is the loss? The loss is basically the family. The family. How? Because see, when you're bound by something, you're committed to it. Now, what is marriage, or what is this relationship between these two human beings? They came together for what? Just for the sexual pleasure? I'm just going to say that it is. Or is it basically a commitment between both two people for an objective higher than the sexual pleasure? Our understanding, the normal understanding, that they're coming together for just more than the sexual pleasure, right? Otherwise, it's just like a swipe on an app and they can do that. So when they're coming together, they're coming for a commitment. You can't be free and committed. You can't just be on both sides, you know, both sides. In Islam, the man is free. Oh, he's free to work. No, he's not free. He's obliged. The darn guy is obliged to work. I'd rather not work, which is doing what I'm doing right now. People say, just travel around, meet people, and speak. But I'm obliged to work. He's not free. But the issue is basically, it doesn't matter who's obliged to work. Maybe let's flip it around. Let's say the women are obliged to work, and the man is obliged to stay at home. The question is you're either committed to the contract, because what does a contract do? A contract is really a way to document a specific agreed upon relationship between two plus parties. The contract, by definition, is a bounding agent or bounding material. So when you're bound by something, are you free? You're not free anymore. So you enter this bounding exercise of marriage. And then both parties come and say, I'm free to do what I want. I can go with the boy whenever I want to. And the girl says, look, I'm free to basically work whenever I want to. Is that commitment or that's a broken commitment? Which one is it?
Broken.
Say again?
Broken.
I can't hear you.
Broken commitment.
Broken? What about the sisters? What do you think? Is it? Look, we're here to challenge anything and everything. So unfortunately, what will happen basically, something will have to give in. You're either committed to a contract, or you're not committed to a contract. Contract bounds people. So don't tell me I want to get into bounding contractual agreements and only be free. This doesn't make sense. There has to be a constellation of how to make sure that the objective of the bounding agent or the bounding contract, the contract itself, is going to be fulfilled. So, for example, in the Islamic, we say, you can't get, two people can't get married, for example, and have a condition in the contract that I will not sleep with you, for example. We say basically this is a condition that negates the essence of the contract. I mean, you're getting into a contract for a reason, and you're setting a condition from the beginning, to create an obstacle for the objective of the contract in the first place. So we say this contract is invalid. This condition is invalid. We throw it in the garbage. So if it was not written, even if you write it and both parties sign on it, still it's an illegal condition that the Sharia throws away. And now we'll speak with the Sharia. With that limit aside, I want to speak about liberalism. I want to make you understand why liberalism is the stupidest idea invented by the human being. And that's why in Islam, as Muslims, and I want everybody to listen to just this sentence. If you only take this, you're good to go. We as Muslims, as a human being, before we become Muslim, we as human beings who basically believe in Islam, say that the human is left to configure life as he or she wishes, we're going to get in trouble. Because we're limited and biased to human being. Now this is what we discussed in detail in this course, the Wadi program. And we spent basically weeks to discuss that in detail. So I'm not going to go through that detail, we can come to the course inshallah. But going back, if we leave life to be designed and configured by the human, we're going to get into a big mess. As Muslims, we say life must be configured. Life at its macro level, at society's structure, must be configured by Allah. And the human's role is to take the blueprint as a nation, as a society, and implement that on a social structure. Laws and order. When the law and the order is based upon the divine guidance, we can be happy. And definitely we don't believe in liberalism, we don't believe in like we're free. It's the exact other way around. We believe that we must be down by the guidance of the Sharia. So we can attain that objective. What is the objective? Where is it? Oh yeah, happiness over there. Remember that happiness that we said we need to be liberated for? Unfortunately, it wasn't the result of liberalism, it's the result of Islam. So when you speak to your friend at school or your work, you have to speak with and confidence that you think you're happy, you think you're being liberal to become happy, but you're not going to get there. If you do experience happiness, it's a short-term thing. So that's in terms of relationships and careers. Give me a third domain of life. Maybe the brothers or the sister children. Give me a domain of life. Studies? We can do studies. Let's do studies. We can tell you, give me anything you want. We're going to prove how it's a mess if it's not bounded. Anything that's not bounded is going to be a mess. That's why in Surah Al-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He created everything in a mizan. And that's why even when we study mathematics, we remember basically the first, second class calculus, we do a maxima and minima. We solve for the maximum and the minimum point of a curve. There's always an optimal point and there's always a less optimal point. You go up and more. If you overeat, it's not good for you. If you undereat, it's not good for you. There might be a range. Your blood pressure, basically, your sugar levels. There's a good range, and there's a more, and there's a less. And everything in life is like that. Studies. Let's do studies. Are we supposed to be, for example, when we speak about cloning, for example, and we start or genetic modification of the fruits? Is that something that basically we should do studies on as we wish and corrupt humanity? Look what happened with the corona. Some people say, I don't care about basically if it is or not, to be honest. But some people say basically this was a lab-generated virus. People were playing with the genetic code of viruses, and unfortunately spilled over. They were happy at the beginning that they thought they had it under control. And then things went out of the whole world was impacted, probably from an economic and political perspective forever. See what I'm saying? So you give me a fourth domain of life. Let's get that bigger picture so we can finish off very quickly. Any sisters? Go ahead, sister. Sister? I saw a hand going up. Go ahead, finish it. Just stretch it.
How clean it should be?
I can't hear you, bro.
How clean it should be?
One more time.
Like how clean you should be.
Well, give me something bigger. Like
Economics.
bigger. Definitely, if you don't not clean, it's going to be a big mess. Like, I'm free to be filthy. So, I don't need to discuss that. It's pretty straightforward. Go ahead, over there.
Economics?
Economics, let's discuss the free markets. Like someone should have said that. Like, that's the basic building block of the liberal ideology, free markets. So when we have free markets, what happens? Everybody sells as they wish. And when we sell as we wish, if we're free to sell as we wish, what happens? Let's start Canada. Yeah? In Canada, everything has the big three and the big four and the big three and the big four, sometimes the big five. Whether it's telecom, it's banking, it's internet providers, it is the retail shops, what happens? Like I looked at this for 10 years. I was paying, I think, $20 for high-speed internet, literally the latest and the greatest fiber optics, to the node, as they say, for those who understand electrical. And I come into Canada, first of all, they don't even have fiber, they have fiber, and it's like $150 for the same bill. Why? Because almost every, not almost, I would say, let me just make a general statement, don't hold me to that for that. But almost every sector in Canada is dominated by an oligopoly of businesses.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, basically somehow, yeah, nobody can blame them, but somehow the prices are almost fixed between them.
Yeah.
Let's take insurance, for example.
Thank you.
Insurance in Ontario, not in Ontario, darn, it doesn't work here. I don't know if you guys pay too much for insurance or not. I think that I believe not. Come to Ontario and you'll die. Because the insurance will be at least 6, 7, 8 times more than what you pay here in Nova Scotia. How much you pay for one car insurance?
The
How many drugs here? Bicycles?
Like average could be maybe like around 100, like between 100.
$100?
Yeah.
For a student?
Well, for student, I don't know.
80 bucks.
$80, $70.
That's too low, okay. Really?
So, anyway, so that's basically a little bit more than Quebec. Quebec basically you pay like $30. In Ontario, you pay a couple $100 at least. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a mess. Why? Because people are free to sell what they want. And who loses? The consumer. The consumer loses. The consumer is always at loss. That's one aspect. Another aspect, if everyone is free to sell what they want, that's why we have alcohol, that's why we have things that kill people, that's why we have pornography, that's why we have most advertisements. I mean, when I was doing my MBA, it was doing marketing, that's my specialization, so they were talking about a great experiment or study. He's like, oh, there was a study, it was randomized this and that. They put a half-naked woman basically in the picture, and then the men started looking more at the object, at the advertised object. I'm like, you actually did an experiment for that. Well, to prove it, they have to say, oh, science, scientific. But women are abused, basically objectified everywhere in the consumer space. What does that lead to? It leads to so many problems. Pornography leads to broken families, addictions, lots of health problems related to sexual ability, lots of divorce rate basically it gets impacted, families gets broken, children it's a big mess. One more domain, let's fight for this. Let me talk about basically another big one I'm going to ask you. Let's talk about political freedom. Everybody says here in the West, oh, we're free elections. It's a big lie. Because when you're free to choose, every one of you poor people, I mean, anybody here? I don't know, everybody's poor for something. Well, 1 million up there. So except that dog over there, everybody has a vote. But that dude who's a multi-millionaire can influence lots of minds within his municipality. Or if he's even a billionaire in his province. Or he's a multi-billionaire in the whole country. I was just speaking to a brother from New Brunswick, and he told me basically there's a family by the name of
Irving.
What's it called?
Irving.
Irving.
Irving, yes. That's the third richest family in Canada. They own half of New Brunswick, not all of them. They own the province, literally.
Same
One
Nova
family,
Scotia.
and you tell
The
me,
same thing.
when these dudes, not only they vote, because they're already basically shaped the public opinion, so they don't even go vote. And if they do, they just want to fix it. It's free elections though. But what happened? Are you sad or you're happy? Did you really elect somebody, or did you elect somebody that you were influenced to elect by the media that's owned by few super rich people? Free elections. But nobody wants to tell you the truth. Nobody wants to tell you basically anytime that you are free, it's like basically eating lots of sugars in your teenage years. You will feel the pain in your 30s and 40s. And that's in every domain of life. So this is really basically the only thing I wanted to basically get you to understand. That the deception of freedom, as brother, forgot his name over there, said in the lesson, Hassan. Gotcha, bro. Brother Hassan understood the issue with the deception. The deception is basically they sell you freedom, not because you want to be free from freedom, you want to be free to be happy. And they link the two together through Hollywood and through the media and through the news and through the schooling system. It's all ideological corruption. So So today I hope you understood the despicable poison of freedom and its ideology, which is liberty. What's the alternative? Well, I think one sister spoke about it over there, another brother spoke about it. We believe as Muslims that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just send us few commands about personal hygiene and rituals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, due to His infinite wisdom and infinite kindness and infinite mercy and infinite knowledge and infinite love for His creation, have sent us a message to tell us this is how you live life. On the political side, on the economic side, on the judicial side, on the social side, and on the only side that everybody understands, which is the spiritual and the personal. That's just one of many sides. Islam is a system of life, not a personal hip-hop that you adopt. It's not a personal yoga that you adopt. It's not like, oh, this is, well, I'm doing keto. I'm being Islam. I'm doing Islamic. I'm being Islamic. I'm doing keto, I'm doing Islamic. We need to understand that in the day of judgment, we're going to be asked, who's your God? And God means the one that is sovereign over humanity from a social construct perspective. Meaning society should run by His laws and nobody else. So if you accept that the sovereignty is given to anybody other than God, and say, I'm going to still pray because I love God, that's a contradiction. It's actually an act of shirk. Forget the shirk or not shirk, basically. It's literally a contradiction in your iman. It shows basically that you're learning to understand really what it is. It's not about you praying only, that's just one piece of many. It's about you believing that the only way of life that basically creates cohesion, and creates harmony, and creates peace, and creates prosperity, and removes poverty, and removes inflation, and removes unemployment, and creates real security and justice in society, when it is applied on a country national level, through the law and order of the country, that is only through Allah's guidance and Allah's revelation, which is the Quran and Sunnah. And therefore Islam is an ideology and a system of life, not just a personal, ritualistic yoga, yin-yang type of thing. I have to say it this way. Because this is what's preached out there. Unfortunately today, as a Muslim, we're still confused. We have a secularized version of Islam, just like the European secularized Christianity. And we believe this is our deen. And whenever a brother or a sister wants to become better, as a shaykh wants to become a better Muslim, all what they think about is doing a little bit more ibadat. Why don't you do a little bit more social justice? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the one who basically lies about his claim or her claim about being a Muslim? فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي لم يصم ولم يصلي. He didn't speak about prayers and fasting. He said, فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. That's one who pushes away the orphan. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. He didn't stand up in society and tell people, we must have a policy to not leave anybody homeless or anybody poor, or anybody hungry. It's something that rallies for justice. Every single Muslim, by definition, you being Muslim, you're a social activist. By definition. So if you want to improve your iman, you improve your iman by rallying more for people's rights. There's so much injustice on planet Earth. You become the Captain Planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be. You embody the caretaking responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set upon you as a human species. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a town hall, gathered all the malaika, and says, وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all the angels. Come look, I have a news announcement for everybody. I'm creating a new caretaker for planet Earth. Who's that? The human being. So we live basically within a selfish motive or a selfish lens that we see the world in, even if we pray 5 times a day. If that's all what you do, that's selfishness. You just want to pray. What about helping, giving a hand? What about volunteering? What about basically speaking for the rights of the poor people in Africa? What about the oppressed people of the Muslims in China? What about the rest of the world? We need to leave this secularized, deformed, traditional, unfortunately inherited form of pseudo-Islam and adopt the real Islam of the Anbiya. Every Nabi in the Quran, what's their story except basically facing tyranny and facing injustice and calling for social change and political change and economic change? That's all they did. That's all they did. Give me one story in the Quran about a prophet that basically all he was doing is just calling for people, let's fast together. It doesn't exist. Let's do Umrah together. Doesn't exist. Even the story of Ibrahim, that was not the intent. The intent is basically for humanity to understand that Allah is sovereign over everybody. And making Mecca a center point to gather as a nation that have a same vision for humanity. See what I'm saying? So, remember that question? Who asked that question that basically, how do we create that cohesion? Was it yesterday morning? Who was that? Oh yeah, what's your name again? Kareem. Kareem Hassan. So I have to memorize those names. So that's how you do it. There's two things you guys have to do. You have to understand Islam and learn it from an intellectual perspective. So you can basically give da'wah to the non-Muslims, but first and foremost to the Muslims themselves. This is the idea that we need to create cohesion around. That we have a specific vision for how life should be on planet Earth. We have a vision of how our ummah should basically be vibrant and the number one nation in every field of science and technology and economics. Inspire people with a beautiful dream. And everything starts with a dream. But believe it. And understand, as Brother Bandar told you yesterday, that there are people, servants of Allah on this planet today, in this time and age, that will be chosen to be from the Siddiqeen, from the Sadiqeen. The levels of Iman are 4. The highest are the Anbiya, everybody knows that. The lowest is the Salihin. Most don't understand that. The one above the Salihin, so number second from the bottom, is the Shuhada, the martyrs. And the best category under the prophets is what? What is it? As-Siddiqeen. As-Siddiq is a person that Imam Ibn Kathir in his tafsir said these are the friends and the companions and the Hawariyeen of the prophets. They are the ones when the prophets, for example, die between 2 prophets, will be basically leading humanity for guidance. Wearing the shoes of the prophets, even though they're a little bit big for them. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last and final prophet and messenger. But after him, there will be people who are Siddiqeen. And they are Sabiqun. As-Sabiqun, what is As-Sabiqeen? As-Sabiqeen are those who basically believe first when the message of Islam and Tawheed is still new to humanity. And anybody who studied marketing understands that there's a bell curve of adoption of new ideas and products and services. The first phase is 2% of people. The second phase is additional 14% of people. The third phase is 34% of people. That's 50%. The fourth phase, another 34% of people. And the last phase, number 5, is 60%. So even subhanAllah, in the science of marketing, we understand that the new adoption of new ideas, concepts, services, or behaviors. It goes through basically a channel of phases. This number, this 2% are the Sabiqeen. These are the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. These are the Hawari of Isa alayhi salam. These are the people who understand belief, understand Tawheed, when everybody else is so busy with their desires. So my question to you, do you want to be from these Sabiqoon? Yes? Only a few people, 2%. I'm going to ask one more time. I hope this is a biased sample. Market research is my specialization. Probably it's a biased sample. I hope it's a biased sample, meaning there's more than 2%. And ask one more time. Take a deep breath if you really want to say something. Do you want to be from the Sabiqoon?